Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Anthony.
I love talking about this stuff, so we're going to just keep pounding this topic
That's
until
right.
people tell us, stop, just talk about estate planning and probate and executor.
No, I like learning along too.
So we're going to talk about Bitcoin, a letter of instruction to your heirs. So every Bitcoin estate plan really needs to include a simple, easy to understand letter of instruction to your heirs or your executor, just because this is complicated stuff. And in the absence of this, all that hard-hoarded Bitcoin might just disappear into the nothingness.
Correct. Right.
So you really need this letter of instruction to really lay it out real simply. Okay. And by that, explain Bitcoin as you would to a child. All right. This stuff is complicated. Assume your spouse or adult child or executor, who's a lawyer even, depending on who you choose, doesn't get it. And you need to explain this like you would to a 5-year-old. Okay. That's really the best safe, just the best approach here. So keep it
Kind of like you did with me in the first podcast, right? You're like, okay, but we broke it down really simple, but that's how I understood it.
Yeah. And, keep it really simple. So do not, I know the temptation is to write a letter sort of explaining this, mansplaining the history of Bitcoin and the history of blockchain and the history of the Fed or sound money. You don't have to go into any of that.
No,
Just
they can Google it.
Yeah, exactly. If they're interested, which they're not, they can Google it. Just give them enough information to get past that treacherous stage where if they mess up, they lose the Bitcoin forever.
Right. Small details. Right.
Yeah. Just get them enough so that they can handle this new and complex and foreign and strange asset while grieving and while sort of just bombarded with a lot of things from funeral planning to relatives and friends trying to wish them well, which is well-meaning, but you're overwhelmed, just trying to imagine what it's like. And then now they have to understand what a cold storage wallet is with passphrases and I mean, come on. They're not going to be able to. Keep it real simple. Okay, so keep it at high-level concepts. Which major pitfalls to avoid? Like don't be handing out your seed phrase,
Ah, yes.
And immediate actionable to-dos, like a checklist. All right?
Oh, I like that. Actually, that would be so helpful.
Yeah. I mean, just again, if you have any paragraph longer than 2 or 3 sentences, you're doing it wrong.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about Bitcoin versus banks. All right? Most of our heirs understand banks and brokerage accounts, right? So I suggest that a good way to do this is to explain how Bitcoin is different using their existing knowledge of banks and brokerage accounts as a jumping off point to explain, I know you're familiar with, this way of doing things, but this is why Bitcoin is different and you need to be careful, right?
Got it. Yep.
So for example, you need to explain that funds on crypto can be lost forever, right? It is possible to have bad transactions that cannot be reversed. If you do a bad transaction with a bank, you can always do stop payment, reverse transaction. There's a lot of things you can do.
You could call somebody and say, I messed up, right? Mm-hmm. You can't call anyone with Bitcoin.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There is no password recovery. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but there is no password recovery. If the estate plan involves, you as an heir receiving these secret words and you lose them, you lost everything, right?
Yep.
So,
but if you didn't know that's how it worked and you just set it to the side and you don't think it's that important, right? You think, I could just do the reset button. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you don't know.
Don't lose it.
Right. Don't just set it somewhere. Yeah.
Think of, and then one way, again, if you have someone who is a little bit more financially savvy, an heir or an executor who's a little more financially savvy, maybe you can explain to them that think of Bitcoin or crypto as a bearer instrument. Janice, do you know what bearer financial instruments are?
I have no idea.
There are not a lot of movies, like heist movies. Yeah.
Okay.
There are these things called bearer bonds. You ever see the movie Heat? All right. Anyway.
Okay, listen. We've talked about my movie issues. I need to start watching more. Yeah.
But bearer instruments are documents or certificates that whoever holds them owns the money. Like there's no tracking, there's no...
If you have the actual piece of paper, you are the owner.
Correct. And that's why criminals, in these movies go after them because there's like zero paper trail to track them down.
think I probably knew that, just didn't know that's what they were called. But yes, yeah.
Cash is essentially a bearer instrument. I know they have serial
yeah.
numbers, but nobody really keeps track of the serial number.
No.
So cash is, if I have the $100, it's my $100, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's one way of potentially explaining to your heirs or executor, think of your crypto keys, however we're delivering them, as bearer instruments. Whoever has access to them
Got it. Yeah.
has complete, non-recourse, no consequence access to your funds. All right? You are putting somebody in a cameraless room with a pile of cash.
Yep.
So that's what you're doing when you're giving somebody your keys. So, I might use that. So anyway,
Yeah.
there's no signature check. Nobody's verifying your signature. Nobody's asking for your photo ID. It's bearer.
They don't
Whoever
care
has
who
it
you
has
are.
it.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Got it.
So what else do you need to put in your letter to your heirs or executor? Well, you want to explain where you store your Bitcoin. Okay. I mean, I know that's not really how you, but I know the Bitcoin is on the blockchain, but where you store your keys. Okay.
Right.
So number one, you should have at least a rough inventory of how you're holding, because most people have a little bit at least on an exchange. An exchange is like Coinbase or Binance or Gemini, because they need to sort of change that's where you change dollars into crypto before they take it off the exchange. Then they might have some hot wallets. Hot wallets are wallets that are online or connected to the internet. That's what makes them hot. These could be apps or browser extensions or other types of connected wallets. And these are usually because you don't trust the exchanges, but you don't like the inconvenience of having to plug in your hardware wallet to your computer every time you want to do something.
That like middle road. Got it.
And then lastly is the theoretically most secure version of holding your wallet, your coins, your cold wallets. These are not physically connected to the internet at all. And that's therefore the least prone to hacking or any problems like that. And these are typically in the form of a hardware wallet device or a paper wallet, meaning a certificate that has this 255-digit randomly generated thing that is your...
Wow.
Yeah. So again, you need to make an inventory so your heirs or executor know what to be looking for. And this is a little tough because I know things change. So this is why this is a letter and not in your will. Because if it's in your will or in your trust, you have to change it every time. It's very expensive to update your will every time you change your holding patterns. Yeah. Updating a letter, not as hard at least. All right. So then next you want to explain how your heirs or executor can access all the items on your inventory. For the exchanges, that's fairly simple. It's kind of like a bank account. Exchanges are more similar to banks than anything else, and you just go to them like a bank account. Your heirs will go to them with a death certificate and a letter of a testamentary or administration, and then they will turn over possession to you. Very similar to a bank or brokerage account.
Okay.
The wallets, that's a little different. We've talked about this in the past. One good solution for hardware devices, for example, is to give a clone hardware device to an heir or executor, but not the PIN to use it, to operate it, and only have that PIN delivered upon your death. Or similarly, if you want to deliver your seed phrase, I'm not a big fan of splitting up your seed phrase, but perhaps adding a passphrase on top of your seed phrase, which means you need the two in order to actually access the wallet. Maybe have one trusted heir have the passphrase, and maybe have your executor have the seed phrase, and they must connect, or they must join powers, whatever you want to call it, in order to be able to access.
Put it all
funds.
together. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those are just some suggestions. I'm gonna have in the blog post a template or an example of a letter of instruction that you can use. This is a living document. It's not final by any means, but hopefully it's something that we can use as a jumping off point for everyone to include in their estate plan and sort of improve it as time goes on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I really like this concept because as someone who's not really that versed in the whole cryptocurrency world, if I were to serve as an executor, I wouldn't know what to do. Right. So this letter would be a really nice, like, step one, step two, here's where you find it. Cause I wouldn't even know where to find it. I think this is actually pretty good. So yeah, like Anthony said, click the link. I guess it'll be in the blog post and to show you some verbiage.
I think I'm actually stumbling into a niche by doing all this in that I'm getting a lot of requests. As you know, for listeners, I am a professional executor. And I'm also now someone who's very interested in crypto. And those two things apparently don't happen in the same person very often.
No, not at all.
And yeah, it's something that's a lot of crypto holders seem to be very interested in, having a professional executor, meaning a third party that they hire, but who's also competent, or at least not incompetent, let's say, in how to deal with these issues and how to make sure at least to avoid catastrophic loss of the crypto. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and you're not just learning too, but you're doing your research on a daily basis. So as this is evolving, you're also learning the new things that are coming out. So
constantly. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. And I think you just enjoy talking to some of our listeners that with their Bitcoin, right? Is that?
Oh, I've had some great conversations.
I know.
Everyone out there who's written in or made contact, keep it up. As you could tell from our lengthy conversations, I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I think that's it, Janice. We have the Executor book, yeah.
That's a great question. So Anthony's book, How to Hire an Executor, How to Choose Your Executor, available on Amazon. Very
good. Perfect for anyone who might be thinking about having someone professional handle all this upon their passing.
Yes, definitely. Especially you want to have somebody who maybe is a little more competent in this area.
Again, at least not incompetent. All right.
I guess that's a good point.
All right. Again, please throw in the comments. I love talking about this stuff. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thank you, Janice, as always. We'll talk next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.